Yeah, initially it was really a way to pay for college. And I got to the point where I almost quit. They have no shame around that excitement. Kind of like my mic drop in my keynote. It's that the key to progress is having the courage to start something.
Hi, Michelle. Welcome to the Rise Up For You podcast. It's such an honor to have you on our show today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, I always like to start the show off by letting the audience get to know our guests. So, tell us a little bit about who you are and all the amazing work that I know you've done already.
Yeah, so my career started active duty Air Force. I was a fighter pilot flying F-16s for about 13 years. And then the last 3 of those years, I was a solo pilot for the Air Force Thunderbirds. So doing air shows all over the country.
Oh.
And then about 3 years ago, I left, became an entrepreneur, an author, a keynote speaker, and kind of just built my own platform around these really applicable lessons that this high performance aviation background taught me, but that I realized anyone could benefit from. So
Hmm.
that's what brings me all the way to this conversation today.
I love that. Okay, so let's go back before that. So,
Yeah.
who are you in high school?
Yeah, different than people would expect, I think. I have had this like two-part personality. I was definitely a driven high achiever, adventurous. I was a straight A student. I was competitive, but I was also painfully shy. And so I still am an introvert. But I was very introverted at that point, to the point where I didn't even want to, be called on in class and speak in front of my peers.
Yeah,
My face would blush, it would get all red, and I would feel it heat up. And it was so
yeah,
embarrassing, which is wild now, considering I went into this career that's known for being very type A and assertive. And now I stand on stages in front of a live audience.
yeah.
So I was not the confident, articulate person that you see now at that point in my life.
So what led you to aviation and to, going into the military? What led you down that track, especially as somebody that from what I'm hearing was potentially more shy and more
Yeah.
introverted?
Yeah, initially, it was really a way to pay for college. It's
Okay.
not this, like, inspiring, sexy answer about, being super patriotic or September 11th being the factor or anything like that. I think that stuff came later. It was me being a good student, having good grades, and then my parents being like, "Hey, we should leverage those for a college scholarship. Let's look at opportunities." And I did wanna get out of my hometown. I did wanna travel around the world and do something exciting, and so that also aligned with the military, but I went to college as a criminal justice major
Mm,
because I was going to do 4 years on active duty to pay back my scholarship and then get out and apply to become an FBI agent. So it
okay.
wasn't even the aviation that pulled me in initially, and I obviously made a pivot a little bit later.
So tell us about the pivot because is it and I'm ignorant here, so I don't know. Is it rare or common for a woman to be able to go into like the Thunderbird unit and to do the shows and that talk to me about that because I don't know actually.
Yeah, well, even well before getting to the Thunderbirds, as far as aviation in general is heavily male dominated, and then you get into fighter jets, which was what I did my entire career as
Okay.
a fighter pilot. Only 2% of fighter pilots were women when I came in.
Wow.
Now it's about 4%.
Okay.
And as far as the Thunderbirds, I was the 4th woman in history to fly for the team,
Wow.
and the team started in 1953. So, not a lot of us, to say the least.
Not a lot, but hey, you're one of the 4, we're making progress. So then what, I guess, inspired you to take the fighter route and then go into the Thunderbird unit?
Yeah, so I'm in college, I'm a criminal justice major, and aviation always intrigued me because of this adventurous side of my personality. It seemed like it would be a good fit for that, but I wasn't hard set on becoming a pilot. I didn't even know if I wanted to try to compete to become one. And then halfway through, we went and visited an Air Force base, and I saw 2 fighter jets take off, full afterburner, up close from the edge of the ramp, and I was awestruck. Like, goosebumps, just this visceral, excited reaction, and I'm
Wow.
like,
You knew
"Forget the
right away.
FBI. I
Yeah,
have
you
to
knew.
go try. I have to go try." And
Oh,
so it was such a specific moment that tipped the scale for me to be willing to take the risk to put myself out there to try this very competitive thing. But then to actually make it happen, so much has to go right in between that decision to pursue it and then it coming to fruition, because I went into pilot training, which wasn't too difficult to get that first step. But once I was in pilot training, I'm now part of a class of 25 students. And many of us want to be fighter pilots, but each class was only getting between 1 and 3 fighter aircraft spots at graduation. And so it was highly, highly competitive. And my class ended up getting 2 of them, and I got 1 of them. So the odds were so stacked against me. I think it was just this combination of being very goal oriented, having really good study habits, and almost a naive level of optimism that if I worked as hard as I possibly could, I could make anything happen. And the stars aligned, and I went off to be a fighter pilot.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second, because what I'm hearing in between your words, anyone obviously that's familiar with the podcast and with the company, is soft skills, right? We
Yep.
talk about soft skills, we talk about the human aspects that actually drive our performance and our success, that help us stand out. I always say be like the top 10%, right? You were in the top 2% in what you did. You're one of 4 women, but there's a mindset around that. And so when I'm hearing you talk, I hear taking risk.
Yep.
I hear like an unshakable belief in yourself. You're just going to do it anyways, even if you fail, it's irrelevant. So where does that mindset come from, for you in particular, and why do you think it's so untapped for so many people?
So that experience for me evolved so much throughout my career. Initially, I definitely had that because just I had created a proven track record for myself of what I was capable of through academics, through athleticism, all of that stuff. But where the trouble came once I actually became a fighter pilot, got to my first operational unit, is I did not realize this then, but I realize it now. I had tied my identity to being a high performer.
Yeah.
And I had out those 2 things had always aligned. And of course I had setbacks here and there, but I had never epically failed in my entire life. And so now I'm like mid-20s, flying fighter jets, living in Japan. I have attained this goal that I worked super hard to get to. I get there, and it is not something you become good at quickly. It is something you have to fail at over and over again, and it takes years to get good at that actual job. And that was a shock to my identity because I would have these flights where I had studied and I had worked so hard and I had done everything that I had done in the past that had successfully worked for me. And then I would go do the flight and it was so overwhelming. So many things had to happen that I would struggle airborne, right? Like I would land and I'd be like, I am not happy with how that went. And that sent me down this path for a few years where I really did lack that confidence in myself. And I felt classic imposter syndrome. I was like, everyone else here knows more than I do. All of these people are better equipped to learn this job than I am. Somehow I like weaseled my way into this elite role. And now that I'm actually here, I am constantly questioning if I'm the person for this job. And I got to the point where I almost quit. Like I would have walked away from this dream job that I had made it to. And I think the only thing that kept me there at that point was the like shame and embarrassment I associated with quitting
Yeah.
was greater than the like constant discomfort that I was
Yeah.
in this role. And I realize now that that is so normal when you are in a very demanding new career. A lot of doctors and lawyers, when I
Yeah.
share that, are like,
Yeah.
I
In
felt
there.
that exact same way. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
go through all this schooling, and especially if you do well in that world, and then you actually get to the real job and you feel like you should know what you're doing, but you just don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I had to rebuild that confidence and that belief in myself that I have now and that I rely really heavily on by just going kind of through it was forged under the fire, right? Like I am going through years of just not being good and slowly my skill set caught up and my competence in the cockpit and my the respect of my peers and stuff all just naturally developed over time as I became good at the job. And that rebuilt that confidence. But then again, I go to the Thunderbirds and now I am an experienced fighter pilot. I have deployed to Afghanistan. I am an instructor. I do know the job pretty well. But now I'm going to completely new flying in this air show world. And I had to become a beginner again at like a pretty high level in my career. And so that was another, mental adjustment. Not only am I a beginner skill set, hard skill wise, but also I'm suddenly in the public eye. And
Yeah.
so now I have so much pressure on me to represent the Air Force, to represent women on such a large scale. And so it was this path where it's kind of like the stock market, right? Like if you were to zoom out over time, it's continuously going up, but there were some massive crashes in there where I kind of fell back
Yeah.
off and had to dig my way back out.
Yeah. So I would love to know how you overcame it, because what I hear you saying is what we call macro and micro confidence. So many individuals, they build their entire life off of micro self-confidence, which is your belief in the things that you do. So you build confidence because of your skill, your degrees, your
Yeah.
certifications, everything that you've built over time, and that becomes your identity. And at any point, if any one of those micro skills is shaken, then your true self confidence, which is the macro level, it loses sight of who they are, right? And we saw
Yep.
this during COVID. A lot of people were like, "Who am I? What's my worth? What's my value?" Because all the things that they were really good at started crumbling, and that foundation, that true foundation of even if I lost everything, I'm still enough, wasn't
Yep.
there.
Yep.
So for you, how did you rebuild that self-confidence? How did you get yourself to a point to realize that your identity was not based off of your accomplishments?
Yeah, a couple of things. I think I had to realize that action came before confidence instead of the other way around. Like I had to have these small moments of courage where I was willing to stretch myself a little bit, step outside my comfort zone, do something that felt vulnerable because it had uncertain outcomes. And doing that on very small scale, like I call these small bold choices, SBCs, like doing those tiny things where if you do epically fail, it's not so bad that you scare yourself off like back to inaction. And doing that over and over just created this belief in myself, not that I would always be successful, but that I had the perseverance to figure
Yeah.
it out even if I wasn't.
Yeah.
And then this inner voice of doubt that I call the inner critic played such a huge role in those points in my life where the confidence dropped down, right? My initial assignment in Japan
Yeah.
as a new Thunderbird pilot, even a little bit less so, but a little bit still leaving the Air Force and becoming an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
And I got really good at seeing that inner critic as separate from my own identity. And I named it, I like labeled it, I figured out where it came from, like what it looked like. And so
Different side of
when
your ego.
exactly, when that voice would start
Yeah.
speaking up and be like, "Who do you think you are to get on a stage and tell your story? Like, what makes you so special compared to any other fighter pilot?" Or anything like that. I would be like, "Okay, I know where the root of that voice comes from,
Yeah.
and I know that it is not necessarily factual." And so just being able to recognize it separated from my identity, that gave me this moment where I got to choose. Like I got to choose what I did with that voice of doubt in my head, and I just got really good with experience and practice of being like, "Oh, I see you, but I don't have to listen to you."
Yeah.
And
100%.
now I see it like the second it pops up. I'm like, "Nope, like we're going to set that aside and we're going to go do the thing."
Yeah, I love that. It's that heightened level of self-awareness and
Mhm.
self-management simultaneously. It's like, I'm aware that I have this thought, I get it, it's happening, and I'm still gonna manage myself and go in a different direction versus
Yeah.
allowing it to sabotage me. When you are I wanna talk about your transition into entrepreneurship and the speaking and all the great things that you're doing,
Yeah.
but when you're working with clients, or when you're out there speaking and building relationships and networking, what do you say to the person that doesn't even have the courage to take the action? I know for
Yeah.
me, there's so many times where, I mean, there's quite a few people that they just won't even take the first step because of what's happening in their mind. Like that courage and even the thought of just trying is like, no, there's just too much fear around it. So, what are your, I guess, strategies or thoughts, or what do you say to someone that you're working with that is in that state?
Yeah, I try to normalize that feeling for them. And I think when I speak very vulnerably about my own struggle with that, it often shocks people because they put me on this pedestal
Yeah.
of being this like courageous, unflappable person that did these like wild, scary, dangerous things. And when I'm like, yes, I did that stuff. I focused on a very specific skill set for a really long time and I got really good at it, reference flying for the Thunderbirds. But behind that, I was struggling with all the things that you're talking about. And that goes back to both the inner critic and the small, bold choices. It's like, let's see what is keeping you stuck. Like, what is the track talk or what is the talk track? There we
Yeah.
go, in your head that is stopping you when you feel that draw to something, right? Like, we all have those moments of inspiration. For me, seeing those two jets take off where you're excited and you see the opportunity there and you see the possibility and you feel it in your gut or in your heart and you're like, "Ooh, this is something I want." But then what happens next right after that? Like what is
Mhm.
the fear that comes rolling in that stops you from actually acting? And if we can talk about that fear openly, if we can write it down and get it out of our head, if we can zoom out a little bit and be like, okay, let's say you take this risk and the
Yep.
worst case scenario happens. What does that look like?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
often, if you just tell someone about it or you write it down, it does take the power away a little bit compared to you just spiraling in your mind.
Yeah.
And then not only, okay, it will probably show you that it's not that likely that that worst case will happen. But if it did, what can we do now to prepare ourselves for it so that we can weather that storm if we have to?
Yeah.
And that just allows people to take that emotion of fear out a little bit and make more kind of logical decisions that serve their end goal.
Yeah, and oftentimes when we do that exercise, we realize that what we think is bad is actually not that bad, right?
Exactly.
Worst case scenario, we realize, "Well, okay, well, even if I did get there, I have the ability to overcome it." So I wanna pivot a little bit for all the entrepreneurs and business owners that listen to our show. What made you take that track? So, you
Yeah.
went from being a Thunderbird, you were, in the jets fighting and what do you call it? What's the proper terminology? Fighter
Just a
jet?
fighter pilot.
Okay, a fighter pilot.
Yeah.
So what made that decision for you to say, "You know what? I'm just gonna go into entrepreneurship," versus going back into corporate or, working for somebody or taking that path?
Yeah, so most people in the situation I was in would either stay in the Air Force, go
Yeah.
back to flying for a combat unit, stay for 20 years, or if they did leave the military, they would go fly commercially.
Mhm.
That is like
Okay.
by far the two most common tracks. A few people will, like go to business school and go
Sure.
into working in the corporate world. For me, there were several factors, and the biggest one that I think people can get something out of is that my kind of like purpose and my personal mission shifted during the time I was with the Thunderbirds. I was in such a unique position to be able to connect with people and to be able to inspire them, especially girls and other women,
Yep.
and having these inspirational interactions with people all the time where I got to see just seeing someone that looked like them doing this superhero-esque thing was changing these little girls' lives. I could literally see this light bulb moment happen where they're like, "What I can go do in the world is much bigger than I thought, just a few minutes ago."
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was so rewarding to do that for people, and kids were, like, the first most obvious group that were easiest to do that for.
'Cause they're so excited about it
Yes.
all. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and they have no shame around that excitement,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Like, we're adults, we're embarrassed if we feel that way. We're embarrassed if we go up to someone and we're just like, "Oh my gosh, this is so cool, like, I feel so inspired by you." People are like, "That feels weird to me." But I also saw it happening with adults, and it was happening for me on social media as I'm interacting in my DMs with people on a regular basis, and when I'm about to leave the Thunderbirds, I realized that the flying is not even my favorite part of the job anymore. It's this human connection where I feel like I get to give back to other people. And so I was like, how can I continue to do that? I don't think I'll be able to do that on the largest scale by staying in the Air Force. I don't think I'll really get to do that flying commercially. Surely there's a way to leverage this unique platform that I have, just the timing and use storytelling and really impact and empower a lot of people. And I had been asked to keynote speak several times while I was on active duty, and I just couldn't do it because it's a conflict of interest. You're just not allowed to. And so I was like, well, maybe there's something there. I have no idea what the speaking world looks like. I've literally never been to a corporate keynote in my life because I've been in the military the entire time. And so I start to explore that world a little bit. And it just seems like so much fun to take this unique background, be my own boss, have complete control of the creative narrative, and also get to impact people at a level where I get to see it happening in real time. And so I was like, we're not going to go to the airlines. We're going to put our papers in to leave the military and we're going to take this leap of faith. And I think a big part of that was that self belief that I had created, where I was like, I have never done anything like this. I have always been part of something that's so structured. And now I am about to be out there just floating where it's entirely up to me. And I had this moment where I'm like, that is very compelling, but also very terrifying. But what's tipping the scale towards still doing it is that I will figure it out. I
Yeah.
will figure out the things I don't know at this
Yeah.
point.
And that's the key right there. Everybody that is listening, if you remember anything from this podcast, remember what Michelle just said. You will figure it out. You can figure out, even
Yep.
if it's scary, you don't know what it is, you're uncertain. Again, you have that belief in your ability to learn, a belief in your ability that you will find the right path. Not saying it's going to be easy, but
No.
you believe in your ability to navigate through it all. And I think that is so critical and so important. Thank you for your service. Thank you for sharing, Michelle. I would love to jump into the power section of the interview and ask you some rapid fire questions.
All right. I love rapid fire. Let's do
Okay.
it.
If you were to leave the world with one final message, we call it our golden nugget. What would that be?
Yeah. So this is perfect because it plays off of what you just said. And it's my kind of like my mic drop in my keynote. It's that the key to progress is having the courage to start something, even when you don't feel ready, but believing in yourself enough to know you will figure it out along the way.
Yeah.
That is the secret sauce that everyone you admire is using. They don't have any innate ability that you cannot have yourself. So it's just you have to believe enough to try before you feel ready.
I love that. Now, as you know, our whole company is built on soft skills, right? The human aspects that really drive 80% of our success. If I were to tell you to put a percentage to your success and ask you, like, how much of it would you say is attributed to soft skills? What would you say?
Oh, this has definitely shifted over time. I did have an extremely technical job,
Yeah, you
right?
did. Yes.
Great hard skills were required to fly at the level I did for the Thunderbird. So I think there it was much more biased towards
Sure.
those technical hands-on skills. But doing what I do now, oh, it's at least 80%
Yeah.
for sure. It is that human connection ability that is more important than perfectly saying the right word during a speech.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. I mean, and even when you were, in the service and you said that, for years you just kept doing and kept building the skill and learning the skill, it required the soft skill of motivation for you to
For
continue
sure.
to build the hard skill, right? And to not give up. So I love that. Final question for you. But before I ask you, where can we connect with you? Anybody that's interested in buying your book, maybe hiring you for a keynote, what's the best place to find you, Michelle?
Yeah, my website is macecurran.com. Mace is my fighter pilot call sign for people
Cool.
that are like, "Wait, I thought your name was Michelle." So macecurran.com. Instagram is mace_curran. I also put a ton of LinkedIn content out under the
Great.
same name, all focused on the stuff we're talking about.
Fantastic. And final question for you. As you know, we're the company Rise Up for You. What comes to mind for you when you hear that phrase?
I love that you didn't just stick with Rise Up, but you put for you because I think we get very focused on serving other people. And I think even what I do now, right, it's the service of other people, but it's that ability to create self-belief that allows me to do that. And I think that's true for everyone. It's that ability to create that self-confidence, that resilience, that grit that will be the foundation for everything else you build on top of it.
Mhm.
And so that's what comes to mind is the for you part of it.
I love that. Michelle, thank you for joining us. We definitely need to connect in our
Yeah.
Vegas neighborhood, maybe some Leona Cafe down the street.
Oh, yes, that's good.
Yes, thank you for joining us. It's been an honor. Appreciate your time, appreciate your service, appreciate your value. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for listening to the Rise of Free podcast. Let me ask you something. What if you had world-class leadership and confidence training available 24/7, right at your fingertips? That's what we've created with the Rise Up For You Success Academy. So for less than $1,000 a year, you'll find hundreds of on-demand training videos, live group coaching every month, exclusive assessments, one-to-one coaching, and tools designed to help you grow your confidence, sharpen your leadership, improve how you communicate, business strategy, and so much more. So whether you're an individual looking to accelerate your career or your business, or maybe you're a company that wants to invest in your people, the Success Academy is your professional growth hub. Don't wait until the next opportunity passes you by. Join us today at riseupforyou.com, head to our academy, and unlock your next level of success.